Trusting beyond understanding means stepping into a space where our logic, our reasoning, and our human understanding fall short. We live in a world where we want to make sense of everything, where we want to know why things happen, when they happen, and how they will unfold. But God's ways are not our ways, and His thoughts are not our thoughts. When we choose to trust God, it often means surrendering our need to figure it all out. It's a faith that goes beyond the limits of our comprehension. Think about the moments in life when we don't have the answers, when everything around us is chaotic, uncertain, and confusing. It's in those moments that God asks us to trust Him, not because we understand the situation, but because He does. Trusting God beyond understanding doesn't mean that we won't have questions or face difficult circumstances. It means that we choose to trust God even when we can't see the end of the road. We have to accept that we might not have all the pieces to the puzzle, but God has the picture and He's holding it all together. It's easy to trust when everything is clear, when the path is smooth, and when the outcomes seem predictable. But true trust in God is tested when we are walking through the fog, when we don't know what's coming next, and when we are forced to rely solely on His direction. It's in these times when our understanding falls short that God's wisdom surpasses our own. Trusting Him beyond understanding means we are acknowledging that we don't need to understand everything. What we need is His presence and His guidance. We live in a world that constantly tells us to take charge, to be in control, and to make things happen. From the moment we wake up to the moment we go to bed, we are faced with decisions, responsibilities, and demands that require us to steer the ship of our lives. We believe that if we just keep everything under control, if we can just manage it all, we'll be safe, secure, and successful. But here's the truth. Control is an illusion. No matter how much we try to grip tightly onto the reins, life will always throw us curveballs that we can't anticipate or manage. Letting go of control doesn't mean being passive or disengaged. It means recognizing that we were never meant to carry the weight of everything on our own. It means choosing to release the burden of holding everything together and trusting that God is the ultimate one who guides, sustains, and directs. We have to understand that our best efforts, our own willpower, and our desire to control every outcome are limited, but God's hand is not. His ways are higher than ours, and His ability to bring order from chaos far exceeds our human capacity. When we try to control every detail, we create a false sense of security. We may think that by micromanaging our lives, we can avoid mistakes, pain, or failure, but in reality, it only leads to stress, burnout, and frustration. The more we try to hold on, the more we end up suffocating our peace. God is inviting us to release the grip we have on our circumstances and allow Him to take control. Letting go of control means trusting that He has a better plan, even if it looks different from the one we envision. It's a challenge because it requires vulnerability. We have to admit that we can't do it all ourselves. Letting go means acknowledging that we don't have all the answers. We don't know the future, and we don't always understand the why behind our struggles. But in that space of surrender, we find freedom. We realize that God is more than capable of handling what we can't. Letting go of control doesn't make us weak. It makes us wise enough to trust the one who holds the universe in His hands. We are people who live by clocks and calendars, driven by deadlines and schedules. From the moment we wake up, our lives are filled with appointments, plans, and expectations for how our day, our week, our year will unfold. We measure our success by how well we manage time, and we often find ourselves frustrated when things don't happen on our timetable. But when we trust in God's timing, we acknowledge that His sense of timing isn't bound by our watches or our plans. His timing is perfect, even when it doesn't make sense to us. God doesn't operate on the same timeline that we do. We may want things to happen quickly in our own perfect moment, but God sees the bigger picture. He knows what we need and when we need it. Sometimes what we think is the right time is actually the wrong time. We may push, rush, and try to force things to happen, but God's hand on the situation ensures that what He has for us will come in His time, not ours. In our impatience, we forget that God is always working behind the scenes, orchestrating events and aligning circumstances in ways we can't yet see. His timing isn't just about getting what we want when we want it. It's about positioning us in a place where we can handle what He is about to give us. We may think we're ready, but God knows us better than we know ourselves. He sees the preparation we need before we step into the blessings He has in store. His delays are never denials. They are often part of the process of refining us, building our faith, and strengthening our trust in Him. When things don't go according to our schedule, it can feel like we've been forgotten or overlooked, but God doesn't forget. His plan isn't late, it's right on time. Even when we don't understand why things are taking longer than we thought or why doors aren't opening when we want them to, we can trust that God's timing is always right. It may not be on our watch, but it's always in line with His perfect plan for us. Faith in the unseen requires us to step into a place of trust that goes beyond what we can touch, see, or measure. It's easy to have faith when things are visible, when the road is clear, and when we know exactly where we're going. But the true test of faith is not in the things that are obvious. It's in the things we cannot see. The things that require us to believe even when there's no visible evidence. God calls us to walk by faith, not by sight. In other words, He asks us to trust in what we cannot yet see, to believe in what we haven't yet experienced. This is where the real power of faith comes in. It's not about believing because we can see the outcome, but believing in God's promises even when the outcome is unclear. It's knowing that He is working in the unseen in ways we may never fully comprehend. The path may be hidden, the answers may not be apparent, and the situation may seem impossible, but we choose to trust in His ability to make a way where there seems to be no way. In the Bible, we are reminded that faith is the substance of things hoped for, the evidence of things not seen. What does that mean? It means that faith isn't a passive belief in wishful thinking. It is an active conviction that even though we can't physically see the resolution, God is at work in the background, orchestrating everything according to His will. Faith in the unseen is not about waiting for things to appear before we believe. They don't have to be visible for us to trust in their reality. Just because we can't see it doesn't mean it's not already on its way. We all face moments when the future feels uncertain, when we don't know what's coming, and when what we're hoping for hasn't manifested yet. In those moments, faith is not about seeing the finish line. It's about trusting God through the process. Faith in the unseen forces us to rely not on our own understanding or our own strength, but on the one who holds the entire universe in His hands, even the parts we can't see. God's work in the unseen is as real and powerful as what is visible. When we trust Him with what we cannot see, we give Him the space to show up in ways that we never imagined. Faith in the unseen allows us to rest in the knowledge that just because we can't see the solution doesn't mean it isn't being worked out. It's knowing that God is moving even when we don't feel it, even when we don't see it, and even when it feels like nothing is happening. But in those unseen moments, He is building something powerful. Worry is a heavy weight, one that can seem impossible to shake off. It's something we all experience, no matter our background or life situation. Worry often sneaks into our hearts and minds, causing us to dwell on the what-ifs and the potential outcomes we fear. It feeds off uncertainty and it robs us of peace, joy, and clarity. When we carry worry, we are constantly burdened by thoughts of what might go wrong, what could happen next, or what we cannot control. The truth is, worry does nothing to change our circumstances, but it does have the power to change us. We live in a world full of distractions, expectations, and demands. Every day we face challenges that test our faith, our patience, and our ability to handle stress. It's easy to slip into the habit of worrying about our health, our finances, our relationships, or even the future. The uncertainty of life often leads us to try to predict and control everything, which only makes our worries heavier. Yet we find that no matter how much we try to control things, the weight of worry only grows. It's as if we are trying to hold everything together, but the more we grasp, the more we slip through our fingers. In Matthew 6:25-27, Jesus reminds us, "Therefore I tell you, do not worry about your life, what you will eat or drink, or about your body, what you will wear. Can any one of you, by worrying, add a single hour to your life?" This powerful reminder challenges us to rethink how we view worry. Worry is not a productive response to life's challenges. In fact, it is often a waste of time and energy because it accomplishes nothing but anxiety. Jesus calls us to stop carrying the weight of worry, not because he is dismissive of our struggles, but because he knows how it holds us back from experiencing the fullness of life. The burden of worry is something we carry, but it's a burden that was never meant for us to bear alone. God invites us to release it into his hands. When we put everything into God's hands, we are choosing to trust that he is more than capable of handling whatever is weighing us down. Psalm 55:22 says, "Cast your cares on the Lord, and he will sustain you. He will never let the righteous be shaken." This is not a suggestion, it's an invitation to freedom. God is ready and willing to take on the burdens we carry, but we must first let go and trust him with them. Releasing the burden of worry doesn't mean that we won't have moments of anxiety or that life will suddenly become problem-free. It means that we choose to trust God with the things we cannot control, knowing that he is in control. It's about surrendering our need to fix everything ourselves and instead relying on his provision, wisdom, and strength. We may not always see the immediate solution, but by letting go of worry, we create space for peace to fill our hearts and minds. When we release the burden of worry, we open ourselves to experience God's peace, a peace that transcends understanding. This peace doesn't depend on the absence of problems or difficulties, but on our trust in God's ability to handle them. Philippians 4:6-7 tells us, "Do not be anxious about anything, but in every situation, by prayer and petition with thanksgiving, present your requests to God, and the peace of God, which transcends all understanding, will guard your hearts and your minds in Christ Jesus." In moments of worry, we are reminded to pray and to seek God's peace rather than allowing anxiety to dominate our thoughts. Worry may come and go, but God's peace is a constant, steady presence that can calm our anxious hearts. The more we release our worries into his hands, the more we experience his comfort, his provision, and his love. In life, we often find ourselves searching for meaning, direction, and the resources to make it through the challenges we face. We strive to secure our future, meet our needs, and fulfill our desires, yet amidst all our striving, we sometimes forget that God's provision and purpose are intricately connected and that he is the ultimate source of everything we need. When we truly understand this, we find peace, fulfillment, and assurance that we are never without what we truly need. God's provision is more than just about meeting our physical needs. It's about His ability to sustain us in every area of life. From the moment we wake up until the moment we sleep, God is actively providing for us, whether we see it or not. The Bible reminds us that God provides for all His creation, from the birds in the sky to the flowers in the field. If He takes care of the small details, how much more will He provide for His children? Matthew 6:26 says, "Look at the birds of the air. They do not sow or reap or store away in barns, and yet your heavenly Father feeds them. Are you not much more valuable than they?" This powerful reminder calls us to trust in God's provision, not just for the basics of life, but for everything that sustains us. God's provision is not limited to material things. We often think of provision only in terms of money, food, or shelter, but God provides for us spiritually, emotionally, and relationally as well. His provision encompasses the wisdom we need to make decisions, the strength to endure difficult seasons, and the peace that guards our hearts and minds. There are times when we may not have everything we want, but we always have exactly what we need. It's in those moments when we feel most vulnerable or uncertain that God's provision becomes most evident. He meets us in our weaknesses and supplies us with the grace, strength, and courage we need to keep going. Alongside God's provision, there is His purpose for our lives. It's easy to feel lost in a world full of distractions and competing desires, but God has a purpose for each and every one of us. We were not created by accident, nor are we drifting aimlessly through life. Jeremiah 29:11 assures us, "For I know the plans I have for you, declares the Lord, plans to prosper you and not to harm you, plans to give you a hope and a future." This verse is a powerful reminder that God's plans for us are good, even when the road ahead seems uncertain. He is not only providing for our needs, but also guiding us toward fulfilling the purpose He has designed for us. Sometimes we may struggle to understand how our current circumstances fit into God's greater plan. We may feel stuck, confused, or uncertain about what comes next, but God's purpose for us is not based on our current situation. It's based on His eternal vision for our lives. Even when we can't see the full picture, we can trust that God is weaving together the details of our lives for His glory and our good. Our job is to trust His timing, trust His provision, and trust that He is guiding us toward the purpose He has for us, step by step. When we align ourselves with God's purpose, we begin to experience a deeper sense of fulfillment. There is peace in knowing that we are walking in the path God has set for us. This sense of purpose anchors us when life feels uncertain and gives us clarity when we face challenges. God's provision equips us to fulfill that purpose, and His purpose empowers us to trust that His provision will always be enough. Even when the road ahead seems unclear, we can rest in the assurance that God is providing for us, guiding us, and leading us toward the life He has designed.